Hi there everyone, Lars here with another Writer's Rant, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and today I want to rant about why you should be managing your time better. Gah! I'm just going to say this flat out. As a teacher, it annoys me to no end that I have students who have no idea what to do with their time. They have no idea how to actually account for their time, how to budget their time, or what time even really means. And something that I've learned is that this is an issue not just for teenagers, but for so many people. And it is an Achilles heel to even the best writers. Let me walk you a little bit down memory lane, back to when Lars was much younger, back when I was in high school. I had a video production teacher who, before he even let us get close to touching cameras or anything like that, he said, "You need to learn how to budget your time." We spent at least a full week, of learning how to account for time, how to budget time, how to be accountable for what we did with our time before we were even taken to have a look at the cameras. We weren't even allowed to touch them yet. This was before we could even look so much at the cameras. We had to learn how to budget our time. And it was something that was drilled into us for the 2 years that I had his video production class. You were always accountable for the time that you had. And this is a lesson that has really stuck with me all the way well into adulthood, and then especially as a writer. Now then, I can already hear some of you being like, "Lars, no. Everyone writes at their own speed. Everyone creates at their own speed. If you force someone to work within a certain timetable, it is a real constraint on their creativity, and it results in a mess that could have been avoided." And yes, I absolutely agree. That's what happens when you give yourself a bad deadline and you then rush to achieve it. In fact, normally many of the times reaching bad deadlines comes about because people didn't budget their time to figure out, hey, you know what can I realistically reach? Or they didn't budget their time for a realistic goal, and now they're trying to push themselves to catch up to where they should be, and everything falls apart. And then they get pats on the back saying, it's okay. You know what? It doesn't really matter. Yes, it does matter. It absolutely does. Budgeting your time beyond just simply writing a good story within a decent time frame is all about success in actual life. Budgeting your time is one of the most important skills that you can possibly learn. And I do believe that it is very important that as novice writers, we learn how to use our time as we write and to budget it in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, how we are going to use our time for writing. So again, I'm going to give an example from myself. Back before Camille's Harem actually even got together and we formed the group, I was writing a fan fiction on my own, doing my own thing, and I thought, you know what, this would be neat to post this. And I had this big grand idea in mind. And originally I was just thinking, I'm just going to drop the whole story all at once. But as I was writing and everything, I just thought to myself, a good way of keeping myself motivated would kind of be to release these chapters as I go along. And as I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I really want to do this. I want to post my stuff as I churn it out. And I'm going to set a goal for myself. 1 chapter a week for this fan fiction. Because I really wasn't working on anything else other than homework at the time, then I had plenty of time to spare. This is before I started working on Knights of Halley Cruise or anything like that. And so I said, okay, well, let's figure this out. It took me about 2 to 3 days to crank out a chapter, and then boom, there's my chapter for the week. I held myself to a schedule. Every week I would post a chapter, even if I had a horrible week. And what I learned in the process of what ended up being about a whole year of posting a new chapter every week, because I did post every week, I learned when I had a bad time, when there was just life was hard or the creative juices weren't flowing, I learned how important it was to spend at least like 15 minutes or half an hour a day just trying to crank out something, even if it was absolute garbage. Spending time writing meant that I was still honing my craft, that I was still keeping myself focused and concentrated, even in the suckiest of times. And I then learned on a really good week where, like, let's say I crank out an entire chapter in a day, well, you know what? Let's not waste time. If I have extra time this week for writing, let's start working on the next chapter. And that really helped out then when I had really bad weeks where I could only crank out like half a page in that whole week. Boom, I already had 2-3 extra chapters lined up, ready to go, because I took advantage of the good weeks that I had. I used my time effectively throughout the entire year. So that way, even when I had bad weeks, what I did during good weeks by using my time effectively and writing really well, I was able to compensate for that. And I met my goal. Is it the best story I ever wrote? Absolutely not. But it felt so good to keep that goal. And it felt so good to show myself, wow, I can write effectively an entire novel within a year. Again, is it really good? No, I had to begin to learn the process of editing and everything like that. So yeah, lots of room for progress still to be made. But time management, it worked. Take advantage of the good times. Keep on slugging through it, through the bad times. Hold yourself accountable for the time that you use, and use your time wisely. Now, what about current day Lars? Well, how do I continue to use time management skills now, especially when I have a whole lot more to do? Stuff to do on YouTube, a full-time job, a couple of books I'm working on all at the same time. Yeesh. Do I like sleep? I do. Do I get much sleep? No, I don't. I need to budget my time better. I need to manage my resources better. I can still work on this. However, one of the things that I've learned as I have pushed myself to meet my goals of writing, I have learned how fast I normally write. And this is something really big. This kind of once again takes me back to high school, where we were in classes and we were supposed to gauge how quickly we could write by hand and how quickly we could type stuff out. And people always whined and complained, when are we ever going to use this in real life? And the teacher never had an answer, because it's like, yeah, when are you ever going to use this skill in real life of just writing super fast? Well, lo and behold, working as a novice writer, yes, I've now had to figure out, okay, how fast can I usually write? And that's helped me then to actually, again, budget my time. So depending on the projects that I'm working on, I'm like, okay, if I want to try to reach so many words a day, that means I need to set aside 2 hours a day. I need to make sure that I can always arrange my schedule in such a way that I can do 2 hours a day of writing. Or if I'm focusing mostly on editing, because I hate editing, but editing is important, rather than burning myself out on something I don't like doing, I then shrink the amount of time. I'm like, okay, a dedicated 1 hour a day for editing. And then for doing stuff where I'm like, okay, I have a video to do and I have a book to write. All right, I am going to spend so much time here on this video, like 2 hours worth of recording and editing and stuff like that. And when I'm done with those 2 hours, I have to jump on over and work for an hour on my book. And it is hard. It's a constant daily struggle. But by setting those goals and sticking to it, I've been working on sticking to those goals, my time has been used wisely. Now, another thing that you should do with your time is you should budget in relaxation. You should budget in time with friends, time with family, time with your significant other if you have one, or time to engage in other hobbies. You don't want to burn yourself out. You don't want to become a recluse. And it just is healthy for you, and it's honestly good for your craft if you take breaks. But again, there's a lot of people who don't know how to take breaks. They either take way too many or they don't take enough. Again, this comes down to budgeting your time. So what can you really then do? let's go back to basic math. I want you to sit down, write out you've got 24 hours in a day, and start taking account of how much sleep do you usually get? What do you normally do in a day? How much time do you spend on these different things like shopping, eating, sleeping, going to school, going to work, hanging out with friends, wasting time on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or whatever? Okay, you've got those times. Now then, what time do you have left? Okay, begin working around with that. Another tip right here, and this is a pro tip, realize that within those hours that you've set aside saying, yeah, look, I'm just doing that all that time, that's not really what you're actually doing. Within any given hour, you have multiple things that you're actually doing, and you have multiple little breaks. Something that I do as a teacher, I have a couple of breaks a day, either whether it be during passing periods of students or a planning period or my lunch. When I have the opportunity, I actually budget in. I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to get bored at one point, or I know I'm not going to have to deal with students at a certain point. So I have a small window of time to jot down ideas that I have throughout the day. I actually budget that in. Does that sound a little excessive? It does, but it's actually a pro tip to help you, once again, keep those creative juices flowing, because you're not always going to be able to have that hour where it's just like everything seems to magically work. Because remember, my story about writing the fan fiction and updating it week by week by week, there were weeks that were really bad. And there's going to be times where even though you've budgeted that time, you've set it aside each and every day to work on your story, you're going to sit down and nothing's going to happen. You're barely going to type out a couple of sentences. That happens. So understand the time that you have that is free throughout the day to grasp a hold of when inspiration strikes, or just musings or questions or little doodles, what have you. Those little moments throughout the day, those little pockets of spare time, add up, and they actually, as I said, keep the creative juices flowing and become invigorating for when you sit down for that hour or two that you've set aside. Time management just goes way beyond just simply penciling stuff into a calendar. It's about understanding how your time works, where you are actually putting your effort, where free time opens up, and taking advantage of all of these things. I can honestly say that I am very grateful for my teacher who taught me how to do time management, to realize that there's so much potential within 24 hours. It seems like it's not a whole lot. Our days get really busy. It's amazing how much can just eat up our time. But if you actually go through your day and spend some time with understanding where you're allocating your time and your resources, and then understanding that within those blocks of time, there are pockets of free time that you can take advantage of, this is great. Once again, I've really tried to teach this to a lot of my students, and very few of them have ever gotten the message. And when I try to talk about this with my fellow adults, most of them are like, yeah, well, just time just gets away from you. We're so good at making excuses for the loss of time from day to day. Why don't we take some of that energy and put it towards something actually creative and positive? I still waste plenty of time each day. And again, sometimes you just gotta relax. Sometimes you just gotta loaf about a little bit. But you need to still hold yourself accountable, and you still need to make sure that you regularly set aside time to do what you know you've got to do to keep your projects on track. Does that mean that you're always going to hit your deadlines? No. Does that mean that all of your deadlines are positive? No. It takes a lot of work to figure out, okay, I have a story I want to write. I want to write it within such amount of time. Can I do it? You've got to properly plan. You've got to be a little bit flexible. You've got to be realistic. That comes down to setting realistic goals. But time management is absolutely essential to that, to achieving any goal that you've set for yourself, and time management is absolutely an element of success. If you want to be a better writer, you have to know how to budget your time. All right, so I'm going to step off my soapbox for right now. If I haven't gotten it through to you yet, let me just say it one more time. Budget your time. It will save you as a writer. It will help to encourage you to improve as a writer. It will help you keep your schedule, it will help you keep to your agenda and to your goals, and it will help you achieve your goals. Don't believe me? Put it into practice. Alright, so that's enough ranting for me for today. If you'd like to have more writing advice or more writing rants, please check out our other videos here on YouTube. We also have other things for you to check out and listen to over at our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We have writing exercises for all you novice writers out there over at our Pinterest page. And we would love for you to join our growing community of novice writers. Links for all of that and more are down in the description below. And until the next video, y'all, budget your time and choose.